Star CEO Tazula Hadjigeorgiou on online gambling and how the industry may soon have to change. We look ahead to tomorrow's medium-term budget policy statement. As Stats SA says, we did create jobs in the last quarter. New research suggests e-commerce could unlock the township economy. Will more economic growth automatically lead to more jobs? And from 7:30 tonight, what to do with your 13th check with the ever-optimistic Warren Ingram. All of that to come, but first, the very latest Eyewitness News.
Good evening, I'm Maki Molapo. We begin in KwaZulu-Natal. Now that all 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan Forbes and businessman Tebello Motswane are in the country, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says they're focusing on identifying the mastermind behind the alleged hit. Today, the 2 brothers linked to the high-profile case were successfully extradited to the country. They appeared before the Durban Magistrates Court this afternoon. While it's already been revealed that several of the accused were paid over 130,000 rand by accused number 4, Mziwe Themba Gwabeni. Mkhwanazi says as part of their efforts, police are following the money trail and giving special attention to the account used to disperse the funds.
That person had paid the entire group after the job, but he used his bank account to transfer money, and that's a business account that he used. But we are investigating further the linkages of his business account with other partners that he has who transfers money into that business account.
He's outlined their methods.
So we are identifying all those that he has a business interest with that will have moved money into that account, and we are busy looking at those to establish exactly who above him might have requested him perhaps to coordinate this operation.
The ANC has granted its senior member Senzo Mkunu's request to step away from his party duties following allegations linking him to suspected criminal Vusmusi Ket Matlala. ANC Secretary-General Fikile Mbalula announced at a media briefing today that Mkunu will temporarily step away from his duties on the party's National Executive Committee. Mkunu had initially asked to be excused from his NEC duties while he deals with the allegations, but his request was declined by the party. Mbalula has confirmed that the party has now decided to grant Mkunu's request to step back from his party responsibilities, at least for the time being.
It is practically impossible not to agree to that particular request, pending the processes that have been undertaken at the present moment, so that he's got no burden on himself or the ANC.
The Madlanga Commission of Inquiry has heard that suspended EMPD Chief Julius Mkhwanazi appointed himself into the position. Mkhwanazi is accused of abusing his powers by doing so. Mkhwanazi was allegedly appointed acting head of the Community Safety Department last year, under which EMPD falls and accounts to. Arun Singh has more.
Allegations of gross misconduct and abuse of powers have once again been levelled against embattled, suspended EMPD acting head Julius Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi was officially suspended by the city of Ekurhuleni this afternoon after being placed on special leave last month. This after allegations of misconduct were levelled against him before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. Retired EMPD Deputy Commissioner Revo Spies accuses Mkhwanazi of abusing his powers, citing his self-appointment to the role of acting EMPD chief.
He made himself out as the acting chief because he signed directives and he signed letters, but there's no formal letter where he's appointed as the acting chief of police. He's appointed on an acting letter as the acting HOD of community safety.
According to Spies, Mkhwanazi couldn't serve as the acting HOD for community safety and the acting head of EMPD at the same time, but had been doing so. Arun Singh, Eyewitness News.
Meanwhile, in the courts, the criminal matter of alleged kingpin Katiso KT Molefe has been postponed in the Alexandra Magistrates Court, pending a decision to centralize his cases. Molefe and his co-accused, Musa Kenana and Diego Mabusela, made a brief court appearance today on murder charges. He's accused of the murder of Vereniging engineer Armand Swart, musicians Opa Sofoka and Hector Buthelezi, known as DJ Sambodi and DJ Fintos. He's also been charged for the assassination of businessman Don Dindleleni in March 2023. The prosecutor, who cannot be named, has given the court an update on the application to centralize all Molefe's cases.
Your Worship, awaiting authorization for centralization still. So the date that we propose is the 3rd of December by agreement by all the parties, yes.
The Road Accident Fund has earned itself another adverse audit opinion, largely over its insistence on using an accounting standard found not to be in line with government prescripts. The RAF has reported a deficit of 2.3 billion rand for the period ended March 2025, a 44% increase over the previous year, meaning its expenditure exceeded revenue earned. The RAF is largely funded by the fuel levy included in the price of petrol. Presenting its audit findings to Parliament's Transport Portfolio Committee today, the Auditor General's office has expressed concerns about the fund's solvency and its ability to pay claims. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
With matters related to irregular expenditure from previous years still not ironed out, the total as at the end of the 2024-25 financial year now stands at 459 million rand. Added to that, unfair procurement practices and the long wait for claims to be settled are all factors that have impacted on the latest audit finding. Audit manager Sipasihle Malangeni says the use of an inappropriate accounting standard, which does not take into account claims that are not yet settled, affects the accurate determination of the fund's liabilities, currently put at almost 28 billion rand.
The liability may be much higher than reflected in the annual financial statements, given the inappropriate use of IPSAS 42. I think it is an important point to just highlight.
The Auditor General has found no process in place to deal with duplicate, wrong and overpayment of claims, currently standing at 6.4 million rand. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And in the U.S., members of the House of Representatives have returned to Washington today for a vote that could bring the longest U.S. government shutdown in history to a close. This comes a day after the U.S. Senate passed a spending bill to end the government shutdown that's seen thousands of flights cancelled in recent days. The Republican-controlled House is due to vote tomorrow afternoon on a compromise that would restore funding to government agencies and end a shutdown that started on October 1st. President Donald Trump has called the deal very good and is expected to sign it into law. Gold's trading at $4,109.90 an ounce. The rand's at 17.15 to the dollar, at 22.61 to the pound, at 19.90 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $64.84 a barrel. A look at your weather. A partly cloudy Wednesday in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with afternoon showers and thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of around 13 degrees and peak at highs of 25. Pretoria is at 15 and 27. Vereeniging is at 14, reaching highs of 26 degrees. A fine day for Cape Town, otherwise partly cloudy from the evening, along with moderate southeasterly winds at a low of 17 and a high of 28 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Now that all 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan aka Forbes and businessman Tebello Tibbs Motswane are in the country, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhonazi says they're focusing on identifying the mastermind behind the alleged hit.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. EWN Traffic.
On the N3 North, there is a crash after the Geldenes interchange. The right lane still closed. And if you're on the N1 North, there's a stationary truck that's obstructing the centre lane after Allendale. And there's still a congestion on the N1 North between Buccleuch interchange and New Road. And there's a stationary vehicle on the N1 North that's in the right lane after the Flying Saucer interchange. If you're in Cape Town, on the N2 incoming, there's a fault fire at Bunga Avenue, but all lanes are open. And in Plumstead, traffic lights faulty at Main and Gabriel Road. More Eyewitness News traffic at 6:30.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards. Good evening, welcome to the program. I'm Stephen Grootes, 9 minutes after 6. Not very often you hear from the voice, from people actually involved in online gambling. It's been one of the dominant issues relating to money of the last year or so. You'll have heard so many JSE-listed companies, CEOs, retailers in particular, talking about online gambling. Well, tonight on The Money Show, the CEO at Lotto Star, Tazula Hachijorjo, it's a conversation we had a little while ago. You will hear that conversation in just a moment. A very interesting conversation too, but also really a bit of a deep dive into how the online gambling industry works. And of course, there have been so many questions and comments and concerns about it. I'd look forward to your view on the online gambling industry, whether you believe something needs to change, if there needs to be more regulation, 011 883 0702 021 voice notes as well on 072 702 1702. We will, of course, also talk and look a little bit ahead to the mini budget, the medium-term budget policy statement. A little bit of good news coming in, actually, for the minister, if you think about it. SARS is getting more money than was originally estimated. The tax take is higher. The unemployment numbers came in today. We created 248,000 jobs in the third quarter of the year. That's a little bit more than we normally do. Some things are going right. Maybe there'll be, for the first time in a long while, a little bit, just a touch, a breath of wind at the back of the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, when he speaks tomorrow. And we will talk a little bit about our e-commerce boom as well, what that could do for the township economy. Good to hear from you tonight. Lots going on. It's 11 after 6.
702.
702.
Stephen is on The Money Show.
6 to 8 p.m.
Well, I'm sure you'll have seen and heard all of the conversations and discussions we've been having on The Money Show, and I suppose society in general, about what's really been an incredible rise in online gambling. The National Gaming Board believes around 1.5 trillion rand was gambled in the last financial year. There now calls for tighter regulation, and there's claim after claim that people are using social grants or NSFAS grants to gamble online. And as you know, very few of the companies have said very much about all of this, but one that has agreed to take questions on this is Lotto Star, their CEO, as Tasula Haji-Georgiou. Tasula, good day, and thanks very much indeed for coming through. I really appreciate it.
Good evening, and hello to all the listeners.
You will have seen so many concerns from so many people in our society about the industry that you're a big player in. Do you share those concerns? Does it worry you?
We do, and we are worried, especially about the advertising legislation and the advertising in general. I mean, we have been waiting for this new legislation, and we have been waiting for changes, but we are waiting for our provinces as well as our gaming boards to give us guidance. And we're still waiting, in actual fact. We haven't been contacted in this regard. There is a national gaming regulation as such, and we all follow it. But obviously there's another side of it, that it doesn't limit any gaming company or any betting company of advertising, of how much it can advertise, when it can advertise. Obviously it's over 18s. You've got to be cautious. You've got to do that, a lot of things. And we are governed by provinces. And if we do fall out of line, we do get slapped on the hand. But obviously we have overtaken the market in advertising, to the point where I'm actually worried about the media houses, because it's quite a big chunk of their share of revenue as well.
Okay, so I appreciate that there are moves afoot around advertising, and I'm going to come to that. I would like to ask you a general question, though. When you see all of these stories about people spending social grants or their NSFAS grants, very many people in this country have very little money, as you know. Does that, as a general concept, worry you, considering the industry you're in?
I am worried, but I just want to put a little bit of factual information into this. I know that they say 1.5 trillion.
Yeah.
But as per the National Gaming Board's own figures and statement, as per their figures, that 1.5 trillion is not actual cash. It's actually recycling a bet. So in other words, if someone, brief history on our industry of betting, if someone places 100 rand into their wallet account and places bets of 100 rand, that usually turns to times 11 times bets, in the sense of they'll always be winning. And by the way, we set in regulation of what we have to pay out to our players and what we have to give back as winnings. We are set at 97% of return to player. So 97% keeps on going back into let's call it a washing machine. So of your bets, 100 rand will turn into 1,100 bets, because you are using your winnings to place further bets and further bets and further bets.
Okay.
But then no one, that 1.5 trillion is not physical cash as it is. And they're reporting correctly in technical terms of what turnover is. But we only hold like a GP, or gross profit percentage, or a GGR, as they call it, a gross gaming revenue, of around 3%. So 1.5 less whatever the players get as winnings, we only hold at 3%.
Okay, well, this takes us to another question because I think the perception is that people are putting money into online gambling. Yes, some people win, but the vast majority don't. So from what you say then, in terms of a win-loss ratio, if I put 100 Rand in, what are the chances of me winning that back?
The likely aggregate, meaning if you took it across the board and you took all our players into consideration, there's a 97% return to player, which means that there's 97% being paid out in aggregate to all our players. So please don't all phone me and tell me you didn't win 97%. That's not what I mean. You've got to put the mathematical, statistical terminology into it, because some player might win large.
Yeah.
Right? One player might not win, but someone else has won a huge amount of money. So you've got to take it as an aggregate stance. Of our 3% that we hold, we still pay 6.5% of gaming taxes to our provincial boards, and another 15%, it's inclusive of that, right? So that figure is reduced by probably an average of 19-point-something%, if you want to call it. So the fallacy that all the money is kept and everything is, gaming companies are making trillions and telephone numbers are being thrown out there, I believe are incorrect. They should actually see how the business model works.
Okay. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons you're doing the interview. That was new information for me, to a large part of it. When someone goes online to gamble, you obviously need their credit card for them to open an account in most cases. Is that right?
Ironically, yes, if they want to, they go through FICA because we are a FICA regulated. We have to report to FICA, as well as we do. We've got biometric verification, so we also do the picture as well as check.
So you try and check that they're over 18.
100%, and also we're trying to do real-time verification of the person's photo against their ID. So we go through all those metrics, and then so we go through all of that. So if you deposit money, there's various methods you can deposit money, right? Through credit card, through banking apps.
Yeah.
We sell vouchers on banking apps. We sell vouchers in Pick and Pay, which Sean Summers forgot about. We sell vouchers everywhere in retailer operations, as well as one vouchers in all of those places. So you can top up your wallet in various methods.
Okay. Where I'm going with all of this is, and I'm sure you will have seen the claims, that people under 18, school children are doing this. Now, I realize in anything that's involved in online that's not face-to-face, I mean, since people have had a limit of 18 for the sale of alcohol, and people under 18 have been finding a way to get it. What I'm trying to get to is how stringent your procedures are to stop that from happening. From what you say, very stringent.
Well, yeah, we're one of the few companies to actually put biometrics into place. And we check against the Home Affairs Department as well. We can't do more than what we're doing.
Sure.
And we've gone beyond, in the sense of even putting a responsible gaming program together with full-time psychologists, and you can exclude yourself a cooling period, the whole thing. But there's just so much. We're following international standards, right? And so are our gaming boards. Believe it or not, our provinces are very, very up to date with new legislations and new ways. But this advertising thing, I agree, has gotten out of hand to our own detriment, right? Because we caused the...
So from what you're saying, there's just too much advertising.
There's just too much advertising. And we to blame as well, right? We are to blame. But in any industry, you would advertise if you had the freedom. But our industry is known as a sin industry, so we're expecting, like the alcohol, the smoking bans and everything. We've expected it a long time away. We just don't believe it's taken this long, and we don't actually believe that everyone is fighting about it, but no one's doing anything about it because we're waiting. We're waiting to tell us what to do.
Obviously, like all industries, you want certainty, right? But as a general principle, would you welcome or accept, in other words, not go to court and fight like everybody else does in this country for everything, if there was a ruling that said there's no online gambling advert until, say, 7 o'clock at night?
That's exactly what we're expecting. But the one thing I am worried about is, and we're not sports betting, right? But my competitors, which we all know, sporting teams are being funded through the sponsorships. That will go away, right? A lot of that stuff will happen. Media companies will take they will take a hit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of domino effects by making these decisions. I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. I'm just saying we've got to take into account everything that will happen after the fact of you can't advertise. You can't advertise during sports events. You can't, there has to be a phase-out period. I think the UK did it best where it's phasing out.
Sure. When someone is gambling, so they come on, they get through the system, is there any limit for how long and how much money they could lose? Is there anything in the software that says, actually, at this point, you need to stop?
There is, but it's not legislated by our
Sure.
legislation.
No, but you have it.
We do. We have the cool out period. So if you want to take a break and you want to have a cool down period, you can say thank you. I don't want that, but not on the limits. No.
Yeah.
So it's not. Yeah.
I, as Stephen, could then conceivably go and lose 100,000 rand in a week, not win at all during that time, and there'll be nothing in your system that stops me doing that, unless I approached you and said stop.
That's right. No betting company at the moment offers that in South Africa.
Okay. And so someone could lose a huge amount of money, and there's nothing to stop that on your system. And that, I mean, you're not thinking of doing that or anything?
We do have triggers. So we get triggered if we get a large deposit or a large reoccurring deposits. We try and then reach out to them, but more than often we're told where to go, stick it. And then we send out correspondence and we send out the emails. But it's very difficult, right? Because you're telling someone, mostly we get told, don't tell me what to do with my money. But we have triggers that we personally have, like emails coming through. This person deposited X, which is, we normally have it above the FICA value, right? Because then we have to go into extra checks. And we have to, I think we still have it at 25,000. The FICA check now is 50. They've even raised it.
Okay. So, I mean, it's a bit like a barman where the barman says to the guy at the bar, you've had too much, and the guy says, give me another one. So what I'm getting to is this is about addiction then.
It is about addiction, yes. It could be, yes.
Okay.
But we're trying to put everything in place for it. But at the end of the day,
but you could just say,
addiction. Yeah.
But you could just say, Stephen, on this account, so much money has gone through, you've lost so much, you can't play for a week. I mean, surely you could do that.
Well, you see, we can't by law tell them that, because when we do tell them that, they report us to the gaming board, and they get very excited, and we get complaints, and which we have. But what we do actually, not could, is send them full correspondence of how to exclude themselves, what to do, and how to do it. And we actually hit our database quite heavily with those things. But as I said, it's very difficult, right? Because a normal South African has about 3 betting accounts through different companies. So if they're not betting with me, they're going to be betting with someone else.
Sure.
And actually they do. They go to different, everyone's checking the odds, everyone's going to different places. So it's got to be a holistic thing if you want it to work.
I accept all of that, but we can't always justify doing the wrong thing because other people are doing the wrong thing.
I'm not saying I'm justifying it. I'm just saying, yes, we can put those things into place, but am I really solving the bigger issue?
Sure. Okay. The advertising which you say is going to change things, do you think it'll change any behavior? I mean, my sense of it, just from the conversations that I see, is that more and more people are likely to start opposing online gambling. At some point, this will become a political issue. It will probably be a cross-party issue, actually, because the people who vote are parents and grandparents, not the younger people. And so we're likely to see tougher moves. Obviously, advertising would be one thing, but I wonder if you think that tougher moves would work, or if it'll just go overseas and that'll be the end of that.
It'll probably go overseas, but based on European legislation changing and looking at what their figures are doing, it's only increased betting. It hasn't decreased revenues in any sense of the word. And this is what's scary about it, right? The UK, the European countries have all put these legislations of banning advertising, banning everything, and that hasn't slowed them down. So this is what I'm saying. It's a catch-21, right? I agree with the advertising whatever needs to be changed needs to be changed. But will that solve the bigger issue? I don't think so, because the figures or the European history in gaming shows the other way.
Tasula, I really appreciate you coming in. You're the only person I know in this field who's actually come and do interviews, so I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I hope, I don't know if I made sense today or if I didn't, but I hope, at the end of the day, we do care. And, we just want to do the best for this country, and we do a lot of, work for this country. So hopefully we find a solution soon.
The Lotto Star CEO, Tasula Haji-Georgiou, on The Money Show. Well, that conversation recorded yesterday. Makashula Ghana is an MP for Rise Mzansi. He's been campaigning for tighter regulation of the online gambling sector. Makashula, good evening. You've been listening to that. You heard the suggestion that it's a fallacy that online gambling companies are making trillions or phone numbers. Are you convinced?
Not at all, Stephen. So there might be few players that win. Majority of the people that gamble, they lose. There's everyone, they know that. So you might have one player that goes and win 500,000 and $1 million. Then they use an average that says, but 10,000 players played. 9,999 of the players have lost. Only this guy won $1 million. Therefore, the average loss is X. And that's the problem with that kind of an argument. And we find difficult. What I found disturbing, Stephen, in that conversation that you've had, is that the CEO of Lotto Star says we've been waiting. So we are doing this harm with advertising. We've been waiting for the regulators to tell us, please slow down. But because no one tells us to slow down, we just continue to inflict, continue to have as much advertising as possible because no one is telling us. So they don't have conscience. They don't have shame. They know it's wrong. They are advertising. They know it's wrong, but they are doing nothing. They are waiting for us to tell them, stop it. And that's what I find disturbing. The other thing that I find disturbing is that she does not want to accept that their messaging in these adverts is actually misleading. It does not encourage responsible gambling. And that I find very, very disturbing. And that's why I've been on this, as you know, Stephen. I've been saying, no, we need to change the times that these gambling adverts are being aired on radio, on TV, how social media influencers are being used by these gambling companies to present themselves as if they are always winning. How we get the banks getting involved. Because the point that you are raising, Stephen, to say, but how do you then flag that now I have played so much? Soft lock me. There's a system that you can do to soft lock someone to say, no, now you have gone overboard. They don't want to do that. And these are the things that in our engagement with the industry players, with the DTI, we have said, let it be done. And that's why, yesterday I met with the CEO of Betway, and we agree on most of the things. There's no betting operator that says, no, this advertising is okay. But no one is willing to say, no, I'm not going to advertise in the morning when kids are going to school. I'm not going to advertise during a prime time TV. None of them want to do that because they say, no, regulator must come and tell us.
Makashula Ghana, really appreciate the time. Thank you. Member of Parliament for Rise Mzansi, as you can hear, campaigning to try and limit the influence of online gambling. Your views, 072 702 1702, and of course 011 88 30702 and 021 446 0567.
The Money Show.
The Markets.
Marco Thafio is the lead specialist for investment and trading sales with ABSA. Marco, good evening. A very strong update from Anglo Gold, producing more gold at a good time.
Absolutely, Stephen. I mean, the biggest beat there really came from the free cash flow, coming in at $920 million. And this results in a big beat in the dividend, 91 US cents. Market was looking for about 50 cents.
I mean, presumably there's still room to go up if you're in the gold shares at the moment.
That's the way it feels. I mean, that gold price is well buoyed. I mean, we'll look out for some new updates tomorrow. Goldfields with the Capital Markets Day as well as Harmony's results.
Premier had a strong update as well.
Absolutely. I mean, coming into the upper end of their guidance, I think what really the market quite liked was they continued to talk about a once-off dividend as well as a share buyback program. And this is all around the Rhodes Food Group transaction, which is ongoing. So you saw Rhodes pulled up by that on the day as well.
And then AVI, also, I mean, another company with quite a nice update as well. I mean, there were quite a few of these today.
Yeah, good down the markets overall. I mean, AVI up over 6%, really coming down to their I&J business doing significantly better. Better catches, lower fuel prices and good demand overall. That saw the group profit up quite nicely ahead of what market was expecting.
Medium-term budget policy statement tomorrow. I mean, the sort of burning question, I suppose, is whether or not we'll get a proper lower inflation target, but there's a lot of other things to look at.
Absolutely. Look, one of our key expectations is the lowering of that inflation target to that 3% level. We also think that you'll see the main budget revenue upwards revisions to about 35 billion. This is strong commodity prices as well as higher VAT receipts. We also think that you will see a bit of an underspend, and that could narrow the main budget to about 4% of GDP and lift the primary surplus to 1.3%. So those are some of the key items we're looking for.
All of that happens, we get a stronger rand tomorrow.
Feels that way.
Marco Stathio, like a bit of optimism in the evening. Lead specialist at investment and trading sales with ABSA, just after 6:30. Time for the latest Eyewitness News. Marky, good evening. Dada Morero on the defensive. What?
That's right, Stephen. Joburg Mayor Dada Morero has rubbished claims that the city's inner city turnaround efforts are driven solely by the upcoming G20 summit. The international gathering is set to get underway in the next 2 weeks, with global leaders expected to flock to Johannesburg. Concerns have been raised about the state of the city, particularly in areas where service delivery has deteriorated. Addressing the media today, Morero said the city's work to rehabilitate the CBD will continue beyond the G20 summit.
We also reaffirm that the Joburg turnaround plan continues decisively beyond major events like the G20. The turnaround plan is the backbone of our service delivery renewal and the foundation upon which we are building a stronger, more capable city.
The DA says instead of signalling new spending plans when the medium-term budget policy statement is made by the Finance Minister tomorrow, it's expecting Enoch Godongwana to instead announce that he's identified billions in wasted spending. While the mini-budget is not traditionally when new taxes are announced, DA MP Mark Burke says his party does not want any such surprises in preparation for the 2026 budget. The DA and the EFF went to court in March when the Finance Minister tabled a tax bill along with the national budget to raise the value-added tax rate. The increase was then retracted in the third version of the budget tabled belatedly in May. Burke says his party wants to see spending reviews which result in budget savings becoming a regular feature of the budgeting process.
We're expecting no new tax increases, including being able to avoid bracket creep on the back of better existing revenue collection from SARS and a minor commodities boom. We're looking forward to updates on reform and an elimination of ghost workers.
Cape Town Mayor Jordan Hill-Lewis says he's pleased with the number of new jobs created in Cape Town in the third quarter of 2025. Statistics South Africa released the country's latest quarterly labour force survey today. The data shows a dip in unemployment rate from 33.2% to 31.9% in the 3 months through September. Hill-Lewis says the numbers also show that Cape Town created 40,000 new jobs over the last quarter.
This is very encouraging. This is really the purpose behind everything that we do in Cape Town, to grow our economy faster and get more people out of poverty and into work. And it's thrilling to see that the city is on a good trajectory and that we are indeed getting more people into work.
And in North America, Ukraine and the Middle East are set to be high on the agenda as the group of 7 foreign ministers meet in Canada today. Washington's top diplomat, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, is likely to face questions over U.S. President Donald Trump's efforts to end the war in Ukraine, as well as the second phase of the Gaza ceasefire deal. A U.S. brokered ceasefire took effect in Gaza on October 10th, but efforts to advance his plan to end the war beyond a ceasefire are faltering. The gathering is also taking place after after efforts to organize a summit between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Trump were put on ice last month as Moscow's rejection of an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine cast a cloud over attempts at negotiations. In a bid to ramp up pressure on Moscow, the Trump administration hit Russia's two biggest oil companies with sanctions late last month in an effort to squeeze Russia financially and force it towards a peace deal that would end the 3.5-year war. Trump has sought a rapprochement with Moscow and held a summit in Alaska with Putin in August, but he has backed calls for an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine with forces at their present positions, while Moscow has said it wants Kyiv to yield more territory. A look at your weather. A partly cloudy Wednesday in store for Gauteng with afternoon showers and thunder showers expected tomorrow. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 13 and 15 degrees and peak at highs between 25 and 27 degrees. A fine day for Cape Town, otherwise partly cloudy from the evening, along with moderate southeasterly winds at a low of 17 and a high of 28 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News, Joburg Mayor Dada Morero has rubbished claims that the city's inner city turnaround efforts are driven solely by the upcoming G20 summit.
EWN Traffic.
On the N1 North, there's still that stationary truck in the centre lane after Allendale Road, and there's congestion on the N1 North between Buccleuch Interchange and New Road, and on the N12 West between Diepkloof Interchange and Uncle Charlie Interchange. Hey, looking at Cape Town on the N2 incoming, officials busy with the fault fire at Bunga Avenue. All lanes are open, but please be careful as smoke is affecting visibility and there's delays on the elevated freeway incoming. More Eyewitness News traffic at 7 p.m.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Beyond every boardroom is a story waiting to be written. A story of a business and its potential, of a community that thrives, a hospital that serves, and energy that powers millions of dreams. It's a story that only gets better with a partner that has the expertise and solutions to make it a reality. At ABSA CIB, we are invested in your story, and we invite you to write it with us. Because your story matters. ABSA, an authorized FSP and registered credit provider.
As the world's leaders meet for the G20 summit in Johannesburg, the eyes of the world will be upon us. Not just to South Africa, but Africa. It's the very first time that this summit has been held on our continent. What the world will see is a country building infrastructure that improves the lives of its people and lives up to the summit's themes of solidarity, equality, and sustainability. SANRAL's investment and projects ensure that we undertake this journey together with our neighbors. The N4 Maputo Corridor project stimulates trade to Maputo in Mozambique. The upgrade extends along the N4 to the Trans-Kalahari Corridor, growing trade for Botswana. The N7 from the Cape to Namibia is growing cross-border commerce, and the N1 project facilitates trade with Zimbabwe. The world will see an Africa that's building a better continent through roads. SANRAL, an agency of the Department of Transport.
Did you know that every time you shop and save with Better Rewards, you're supporting the Dis-Chem Foundation? Each time you swipe, not only are you rewarded, but a percentage of your purchase is donated to the Dis-Chem Foundation to support communities in need. All the more reason to sign up to become a Dis-Chem Better Rewards member. Support with every swipe. The Dis-Chem Foundation, caring for the community.
The Money Show on 702.
Monday to Friday, 6 to 8 p.m.
22 minutes to 7. Well, a bit of a response coming through to that conversation around online gambling, taking your views on 072 702 1702. Deirdre is saying they need to ban gambling advertising, period. Deirdre's in Stellenbosch. Len says, hi, Stephen, listening to the gambling debate. Although many people lose, the house's take is below 5% based on huge volumes of bets transacted. I've actually been a board member of several hotel-owning casino groups. Gambling is ruinous, and advertising makes it look glamorizing. And advertising needs to be stepped up so the heartache is reduced. I presume, Len, what you're suggesting is the sort of responsible gambling advertising. In other words, how to sort of manage it, if that makes sense. I do get a sense, as I said in that conversation with the CEO at Lotto Star, I do get a sense that there are people in society who are going to move against. It's not just Mokashule Ghana. I think there will be a sort of cross-party political thing behind this, and I think we will start to see that. I'm very interested in your views, your contact with this industry. What's happened? Do you know people who've been involved, who've done online gambling? I mean, how's it been for you and your family? Would really appreciate that view on 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567.
EWN Sport.
Tolakele, good evening. The Proteas are playing proper cricket with a capital T.
Absolutely, Stephen, and they'll just have 3 full days to practice and prepare for that first test against India, which begins on Friday. In team news, Captain Themba Pavuma is fit and will lead the side, while Keshav Maharaj has discussed what he expects after their drawn series on the subcontinent against Pakistan.
No, actually the spinners do the least talking, regardless of the condition. But yeah, I don't think it will be as spin-friendly as we experienced in Pakistan. I think it will be good wickets that will deteriorate, as the game goes on. So probably more of your traditional test wickets from what we see.
Hugo Broos has told social media critics of his Bafana selections that their opinions don't affect him. With South Africa due to play a friendly against Zambia on Saturday, many question the squad selected by the Belgian coach. This includes the continued snubbing of Wydad Casablanca forward Thembinkosi Lorch, as well as the non-selection of Kaizer Chiefs players.
You know how I feel and what I think about social media. I don't follow that, not at all. And I think if I should read those things, that I should laugh. Because those are people who are suddenly think that they are important, and in social media they can say what they want. It's really nonsense, it's ridiculous, and it doesn't affect me at all.
Vela Kumalo believes that the under-17 success at the World Cup is proof that South African football is on the right track. Amajimbos qualified for the knockout stages despite losing 3-1 to Italy in their final group game and are now waiting to find out who their next opponents will be. Their progression comes on the back of Amajita also advancing to the last 16 of the Under-20 World Cup.
The dream is being realized here. I think we are in the right direction. I think what we have been dreaming about for 2 years now, we are almost there. So it is something that one cannot really explain in many words, but it was a good moment. It's huge for me. It's huge for the boys. I think it's huge for the country. It's a big thing for the country to say at the youth level, we are able to get to this level.
And Andre Esterhuizen has been held as the Springboks' new cheat code. That's for his hybrid role in their win over France in their outgoing test. The centre turned into a flanker after South Africa were reduced to 14 men. And assistant coach Tony Brown has discussed how vital his versatility is for the team.
What started out as a little bit of an experiment with Andre trying to get him to be able to play loose forward and inside centre has become a bit of a weapon for us, and probably getting the red card and having Andre on the bench. I don't know if we could have asked for a better impact player in that situation who could go to the mauls, go to the scrums and then defend at inside centre when France had the ball. So he's getting better and better as we get through the test match year.
Tolagile Mganga, Eyewitness News Sport.
The beeping machines, the hospital smells, the moments of fear. And all that remains is what matters most.
Dad's home!
Because recovery isn't about the procedure or the paperwork. It's about getting back to the people and places that matter to you. Bonitas, medical aid for South Africa. Voted #1 medical aid in the Ask Africa Orange Index Awards for the 2nd year running. Visit bonitas.co.za and find your plan.
What do partners of the Gates Foundation do when facing the world's toughest challenges? They keep going. From discovering a plastic drape that helps detect excessive postpartum bleeding faster, to developing better bed nets to kill malaria-carrying mosquitoes, to researching an RSV vaccine that could save hundreds of thousands of children. For every problem, there are people who prove that progress is possible. The Gates Foundation, partners of human potential. Learn more at gatesfoundation.org/keep going.
Small businesses are anything but small. They're the backbone of our communities, the dreamers, the doers, the ones who keep Mzansi moving forward. That's why 702 and Capitec Business Banking are putting them in the spotlight. Every Thursday between 6 and 8 p.m., catch Small Business Focus with Capitec, where we showcase the hustle, heart, and the secrets to thriving in today's economy. Your vision matters, and with Capitec, you're never building it alone. Small Business Focus with Capitec, the business bank for everyone. Thursdays between 6 and 8 p.m. on 702. Capitec Bank is an authorized FSP 46669.
The Money Show
With Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
and DSTV channel 856.
16 minutes to 7 the time. Well, quite a bit of anticipation ahead of the medium-term budget policy statement tomorrow. And for the first time in years, there are one or two little bits of good news going into it. The unemployment numbers released today showed we created nearly 250,000 jobs in the third quarter. SARS has gathered around 18 billion rand more than was originally estimated. From what I can see, there's no sort of public turbulence in the national coalition ahead of the mini-budget tomorrow. Mzamasi Mabekle is the head of South African Fixed Income at Melville Douglas. Mzamasi, good evening. How would you describe the situation the finance minister is in? Is Enoch Godongwana in a slightly better position than he might have predicted back during the budget fracas in February?
Absolutely. Good evening, Stephen, and good evening to your listeners. You are quite correct, Stephen. This medium-term budget policy statement will be delivered in a far different environment, both politically and economically, than was the case when we had those three iterations of the national budget that was finally passed in May. Just a quick update. The rand is stronger than when he delivered the budget in May. I think it's 17.16 as we speak today against 18.50 to the dollar when he delivered that budget. The cost of capital in South Africa is much cheaper today than was the case when he delivered the budget in May. 10-year South African 10-year bonds are trading at about 8.8% today against the 10.5%. Which was the case in May when he delivered the budget. He's gotten a windfall from commodities led by gold. Gold is trading way above the 4,000 an ounce mark today. That can only mean more revenue in the form of capital income tax from commodity stocks. That would have been a windfall, and he would not have had sight of that in May. So the circumstances under which he will deliver this budget tomorrow are far different than was the case in the three iterations of the budget earlier on in the year.
So when things are slightly better than you expect, what do? You pay back as much debt as you can, maybe?
That's the prudent thing to do, Stephen. And secondly, because you are in a better financial situation right now, you then do not get tempted to spend more. All you do is you pay off your debt and you become prudent about your expenditure, because as we saw about 2 or 3 years ago, these windfalls from commodities do not come every year. You do not have advantage of those windfalls from commodities or any other sources of extra revenue every year. And your cost base is still very much elevated. There are still government projects that you cannot put aside. So what becomes important is prudence must prevail. And of course, in order to further reduce your cost of capital, you've got to rein in on your levels of debt. And I think tomorrow, what South Africans would want to hear, what investors would want to hear, is does the minister have the handle on the escalating debt? Because remember, we are currently spending about 21 cents of every 100 cents of revenue we collect in repaying and servicing costs.
The other big question, of course, and there's still a question mark about it, is the inflation target. The Reserve Bank Monetary Policy Committee is targeting the lower end of the current band of between 3 and 6%. Are you expecting finally some kind of confirmation of a 3% target?
Stephen, we should expect. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't say anything about the lowering of the inflation target, because here's why. When you make your forecast, even your inflation forecast, what are you going to base them on? When you make your GDP forecast, your nominal GDP forecast, what are you going to make them on? So I think tomorrow it will be very surprising if he does not give us a definite answer as to when will the inflation target be lowered, he must at least give us timelines as to when that will happen. I do not think there is any contradictions between the National Treasury and the South African Reserve Bank on the need to lower the inflation target. Because remember, where there were points of differences, because the minister had said that he wants to complete the consultative process and he wants to consult broadly. But in essence and in principle, there was that unanimity between the two entities as to lowering the inflation target. And I think tomorrow we should hear more on that.
I mean, I made the point last night. I mean, it's amazing to me there's virtually no discussion about this, no political discussion at all. There is in certain spaces, but it's not something the country is talking about. There's a little bit of optimism around Mzamasi that maybe things are beginning to turn. Transnet's better, Eskom's much better. There are proper open conversations around regulation. Inch by inch, things seem to be looking up a little bit. Are there any other levers the minister could pull tomorrow to sort of just push that process of reform along?
Absolutely. I think tomorrow what we will hear an emphasis as to how the progress that has been made through Operation Vulindlela. We have seen the much progress being made as far as energy is concerned. If you look at Eskom is in a far better place than it was 2 or 3 years ago. And the next point and the next project to run with is freight and logistics through Transnet. For the very first time this year, Transnet, even though it's still delivering negative financial results, but it was a far better improved financial performance than it has in the past. So you would expect to hear from the minister progress as far as that is concerned. And secondly, most importantly, municipalities, because that's where service delivery takes place. You can imagine if you want to set up a shop in South Africa, you've got to set it up at local government because that's where you're going to get your services from. And I think we should hear from the minister the work that has been done in encompassing and strengthening local government through financial support for those municipalities that are in a financial situation to be supported in terms of staff and human resources and capital and all of that. So that's one thing that we should be expecting to hear from the minister as well. As again, how then do you strengthen public service so that the right skills are at the right place? And how do you give financial support to that?
Yeah, always the question. Mzamasi Mabehle, thanks very much indeed. Head of South African Fixed Income at Melville Douglas. 8 minutes to 7. Corporates That Care promotes and encourages corporate leaders and all citizens to walk the talk for a better South Africa. Catch Corporates That Care this Wednesday at 10 to 9, featuring exclusive books. Their CEO, Grattan Kirk, will be in conversation with Bongani Bingwa. Join us every Wednesday as we highlight the efforts of companies and brands dedicated to building our country. Corporates That Care is a Prime Media Cares initiative with 702 and Prime Media Outdoor. 702, let's walk the talk and make a difference together.
I think it's time for an adventure. We could visit the grandkids, check on a London apartment while we're there. Or we could meet them in Dubai and look at properties along the way.
Why settle in one place when you can be a global citizen? If it's on your mind, it's on ours. Partner with a wealth banker who will connect your global banking, lending and investments on a single platform. See money differently. Nedbank Private Wealth. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Make waves with Hollywood Bets in the Splash the Cash tournament for your shot at a share of 1 million rand. Top the weekly leaderboard in this thrilling competition for your chance at a mad cash dash. Simply bet 2 rand or more on Playtech slots or 100 rand or more on Playtech live casino games to enter. Get locked, loaded and ready to play. It's more fun to spin with us. Bet now. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0170.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards.
6 minutes now to 7 that time. Well, e-commerce, one of the big stories of the last 10 years. And new research this week suggesting a market worth around 900 billion rand is lying untapped in our townships. It could be tapped by e-commerce, essentially suggesting that a little bit of focused investment would unlock this economy. Machete Rakabe is a senior researcher for political economy at the Mapangubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. They did this survey, or this report rather. It was compiled for the E-Commerce Forum South Africa. Machete, good evening. You suggest our e-commerce market's actually grown a lot more quickly than some other markets. I mean, it has been dramatic change quite quickly.
Yeah, good evening, Stephen, and good evening to your listeners. Yes, of course. Post-COVID-19, what we have seen, the e-commerce growth in the country has been more than double digits. But what we're actually suggesting there is that given the level of maturity, the e-commerce maturity system that South Africa has managed to build ahead of the countries like your Brazils and Indias of this world, which are quite bigger economies than ours, we think that we're actually losing on the dividend that comes with that ecosystem that we have already managed to build. So that's what the research is suggesting here, that we could tap into some of those opportunities in the townships, but also making sure that in some of the e-commerce spend that South Africans are taking outside of the country so that we bring it back into the country, and in that way we'll be able to grow the current 10% e-commerce retail sales to total sales to maybe about 20, so that it's more in par with the global, with the rest of the world.
What do we change? I mean, how does the industry change to sort of, tap that?
So we're looking at a number of interventions, which could be either regulatory or policy interventions. So at first, we think that there's quite a number of, there's a lot of regulatory fragmentations, and that kind of holding back the growth that the e-commerce system can grow. And we think by coordinating and harnessing those regulations, that's one area where we think growth will come. We also think we also need some kind of coordination at the level of the authorities, especially because the regulations that are governing e-commerce are quite extensive, and they are not sitting within one custodian. So you need almost like somebody or an authority which can coordinate those regulations, and so that whatever changes required to be made can be made as quick as possible. And we're also suggesting that there could be some sandboxes, what we call regulatory sandboxes. So this is a system that enables the e-commerce players to experiment with new forms of businesses, new models of business without necessarily being confined by the strict regulations, so that they can still do businesses without necessarily complying with the regulations. So they're operating within that sandboxes, and as and when we find the right ways to change it, then we can change the regulation. Lastly, it's just to focus on some of the legislations like your Electronics Act and Communications Act. So where we think that the issues around sovereignty, data sovereignty, that we can change. And lastly, it's just about how we protect some of the South African e-commerce players against some of the global dominant.
So I mean, we all know the dominant players, and Amazon.co.za has been live for a little while now. But we also have a dominant South African player. I mean, do we need to sort of open up the South African space a little bit?
Yeah, and really that's what the report emphasizes, is that we're not leveraging on the critical significance of e-commerce as to create market access, especially for the small players. And the small players can range from those e-commerce players themselves, but also the small businesses in the rural areas and the townships. So what we're saying is that we've got some of these dominant players, which, for the benefit of the country, they've already built this ecosystem that enable us to then bring on board some of the small businesses in the township, in the rural areas, because they've already built the ecosystem that will facilitate transportation, last mile delivery. So leverage on that, but at the same time making sure that you make spaces for some of the smaller e-commerce.
Do you think anyone in government is listening? There's so much talk about regulation at the moment, Machete, and I'm sorry to say this, but I am not convinced that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition is really listening. I mean, it's not just the field you're talking about. It seems to be everywhere.
Well, I think, well, to be fair, government, I think, to a certain extent, they are listening, because if you think 2-3 years ago, the Competition Commission launched that online market inquiry on e-commerce, which obviously they've made quite a number of recommendations. And some of them are still yet to be implemented, and some of them we've already seen them. For example, if you go online to search for a product, you'll see a South African flag if it's a platform that is South African. That is also one of the recommendations coming out of that market inquiry by the Competition Commission. We're hoping that through this study, it will influence some of the thinking within the government. And during the launch, there were some of the government representatives who were there, and they made some commitment that they'll be able to follow up with some of the recommendations.
Machete, thank you. Machete Rakabe is a senior researcher for political economy at the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection. We'll talk about economic growth and whether it automatically leads to jobs in just a moment. Good evening, you with the Money Show at 7 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening, I'm Mikey Malapo. The city of Ekurhuleni has launched an independent investigation into claims of serious corruption within its Metro Police Department. In recent days, senior officials from the EMPD have testified at the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry, revealing the extent of misconduct within the law enforcement agency. Deputy head of the EMPD, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, has been frequently mentioned at the commission for allegedly facilitating the infiltration of suspected criminal Vusmusi Kat Matlala. Mkhwanazi was placed on suspension today following allegations that he granted Matlala undue favours, including the unauthorised provision of EMPD blue lights. Alfred Mushana has more.
The Ekurhuleni Metro Police Department is facing widespread allegations of corruption, spanning from its lowest-ranking officers to its most senior cops. EMPD Chief Isaac Mapieye is currently suspended for alleged sexual misconduct, while his deputy, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, was also suspended today for alleged links to suspected criminal Vusmusi Kat Matlala. A former senior EMPD officer, Revo Spies, has told the Madlanga Commission that 275 Metro Police officers have criminal convictions. Spokesperson for the city of Ekurhuleni, Paramile Mbengashe, says this is deeply concerning.
The city has also launched an independent internal investigation into possible wrongdoing within EMPD. Its scope will be expanded as necessary to include further evidence or allegations that may arise from the Madlanga Commission's proceedings.
He says the internal investigation will not only look into Mkhwanazi, but will also address the wider allegations of corruption within the EMPD. Alpha Ramshwana, Eyewitness News.
Meanwhile, in the National Assembly, National Prosecuting Authority head Advocate Shamila Batoy has come under fire from MPs for refusing to release the name of a prosecutor implicated in organised corruption. Batoy says it would be premature to release the name of the prosecutor who was implicated in corrupt activity by Crime Intelligence boss Dumsane Khumalo and National Commissioner Fani Masemola. But she's offered to release the name of the prosecutor to MPs in a closed session without the media or public present. Batoy was giving evidence before the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee investigating allegations of corruption in the criminal justice system made by KwaZulu-Natal top cop Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. Babala Ndenza has more.
Shamila Batoy told the committee that she received information from Fani Masemola and Dumsane Khumalo about an allegedly corrupt prosecutor. She says she referred the matter to the Investigating Directorate Against Corruption and the member was suspended. But she declined to release his name.
Who was involved in organized criminality. I am not going to mention the name of that prosecutor in this house. The matter is under investigation.
Committee members objected angrily to her refusal to release the name. EFF leader Julius Malema.
But to come and say, I won't give you names, even on matters that are public, that is having taken a conscious decision that I'm not going to cooperate with them. And I'm going to show them that they can't do anything. She's completely undermining us.
Batoy says she will first get a legal opinion on the matter before coming back to the committee with the name, either in a closed session or in writing. Babalo Ndenze, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
Now that all 7 suspects linked to the murder of rapper Keenan Forbes and businessman Tebello Motswane are in the country, KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi says they're focusing on identifying the mastermind behind the alleged hit. Today, the 2 brothers linked to the high-profile case were successfully extradited to the country. They appeared before the Durban Magistrates Court this afternoon, while it's already been revealed that several of the accused were paid over 130,000 rand by accused number 4, Mziwe Temba Gwabeni. Mkhwanazi says as part of their efforts, police are following the money trail and giving special attention to the account used to disperse funds.
That person had paid the entire group after the job, but he used his bank account to transfer money, and that's a business account that he used. But we are investigating further the linkages of his business account with other partners that he has who transfers money into that business account.
He's outlined their methods.
So we are identifying all those that he has a business interest with that will have moved money into that account, and we are busy looking at those to establish exactly who above him might have requested him perhaps to coordinate this operation.
Deputy President Paul Mashatile says it's not necessary to ditch existing black economic empowerment legislation. Rather, a review and possible tweaks could address the shortcomings. Pressed by the DA in the National Assembly this afternoon about whether he would support the party's recently proposed procurement legislation that is not race-based, Mashatile said there is no need for it. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
Through various phases of Operation Vulindlela, Deputy President Paul Mashatile says government is undertaking the necessary reform to stimulate the economy and create jobs. While the DA's Deputy Chief Whip, Baxolile Nodada, argued that government's broad-based black economic empowerment legislation is only benefiting the politically connected, Mashatile said the Department of Trade is currently reviewing it.
To the extent that there may be weaknesses, let's correct that, let's make amendments. That's why there's this review. There's no need to ditch the legislation.
Challenged by bosses Musi Maimane about the differing views on the matter within the Government of National Unity, Mashatile says all parties are being encouraged to support the review of the existing legislation.
Hopefully we will convince them that this is the right thing to do. You don't have to throw away the legislation.
Mashatile says government is committed to ensuring legislation benefits the majority of South Africans. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
And the Citrus Grower Association of Southern Africa says it's hopeful that the recent significant rise in citrus exports will lead to increased job creation. The association says it has seen an increased demand for processing grade oranges from overseas markets. This year, Valencia oranges were the most popular, with just under 62 million cartons exported, a 29% hike from last year's 41 million cartons. The association's CEO, Bichoko Nchabele.
Volume is just one single measure with which to assess an industry. We look forward to working with government to expand our current market access so that the projected continual growth of volumes can translate into more foreign income and job creation.
Gold's trading at $4,113.77 an ounce. The rand's at 17.14 to the dollar, at 22.58 to the pound, at 19.87 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $65.24 a barrel.
On the N1 North, there's still that stationary truck in the centre lane after Allendale Road, and in Cape Town, delays on the elevated freeway incoming and traffic lights faulty at Baden-Powell Drive and Flyburg Road.
A look at your weather. Partly cloudy skies in store for Gauteng tomorrow, with afternoon showers and thunder showers expected. Joburg will drop to overnight lows of 13 degrees and peak at highs of 25. Pretoria is at 15 and 27. Vereeniging is at 14 and 26. A fine day for Cape Town. Otherwise, it's partly cloudy from the evening, along with moderate southeasterly winds at a low of 17 and a high of 28 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The city of Ekurhuleni has launched an independent investigation into claims of serious corruption within its Metro Police Department.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
And now, The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes on 702
Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards. 9 minutes now after 7 the time. We'll speak to Kate Phillip in just a moment from the Presidential Employment Stimulus. It's such an interesting question. Does economic growth always lead to jobs or not? There are arguments that go in lots of directions on this, but so often we hear the thing that'll solve everything is economic growth. Will it? Is a much bigger question. And if it won't, then what, I suppose, is also quite a big question. Dr. Rutendo Ndwengwe, the founding director at Tribe Africa Advisory, he's here already to update you on what's happening around our continent. And, of course, Warren Ingram tonight on what you should do if you get a 13th check. If you ever have a windfall, what should you do with it? Your calls, as always, on 011 883 0702 021 446 0567, and, of course, voice notes on 072 702 1702.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes.
Well, earlier we spoke to Tasula Hadji-Georgiou, the CEO at Lotto Star. We spoke about online gambling and some responses to that tonight.
My name's Kevin from Muldersdrift. I had a friend of mine who spent hours and hours every day on horse gambling, online horses, all those, the betting things, everything. And he would have paid his house off, but he hadn't. And he died, and his wife now is in a bad situation because of that.
I feel that there's no way to do an irresponsible act responsibly. It's like saying kill responsibly, so you can't say gamble responsibly. Gamble in itself is an irresponsible act.
Sure, interesting question there. Yeah, I mean, look, as I say, my sense is that there's going to be a big push to change what's happening with online gambling. I think it will happen probably politically. I'm not sure how it's going to change or what will happen. I think advertising probably the easiest thing to change for government, and that'll happen first. Also, I do worry that the genie is out of the bottle. I mean, to listen to the CEO, Hadji-Georgiou, you can ban it if you like, you can control it if you like, but there are other ways to gamble. And that may be true. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try, I suppose. But I do just worry that, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. There are other ways of saying that, but let me choose that one for the moment. 11 minutes after 7.
702. Stephen is on X.
At Stephen Grootes.
So I don't know how many times you'll have heard the phrase that what we need is economic growth. Everything we should do should be towards that. You've probably heard it coming out of my mouth in the past. There is a different question, though, about whether if the economy grows, will it automatically create jobs? I know Anne Bernstein's been talking about this at the Centre for Development and Enterprise, suggesting we need to push everything to grow the economy. And that often, to be fair, is something that you hear from many different people. Dr. Kate Phillip is from the Presidential Employment Stimulus. Kate, good evening. You suggest that growth alone won't fix our unemployment crisis.
Yes. Good evening, Stephen. I think there's no doubt that the debate that we've been having in the pages of Business Day, there is no debate whatsoever that we need forms of economic growth and development that create more and better jobs. I think, there are few issues on which there is a greater degree of consensus. The real issue is how do we do that? And how do we ensure that the forms of growth that happen do actually deliver more and better jobs? Because there is, growth is not a silver bullet on its own. There's a lot of evidence from the World Bank and the IMF included that shows that in context of very high inequality, growth tends to reproduce those patterns and bypass the poor. So you actually need a mix of policies, including social policies, that ensure that some of the benefits of growth actually do reach people who might otherwise be bypassed.
To put it another way, yes, there might be an economic boom in South Africa because of AI and online gambling, but only about 5% of the population would actually get richer.
Exactly. Good point.
Okay. So then, for you, what would that mixture of policies include? And I'm presuming it would include government work programs, directly employing people to put money in their pockets.
Yes. So that's my beat, as it were. I design and support the public employment programs as part of the Presidential Employment Stimulus. But we only see those as one part of a mix of policies that are needed. I mean, for example, public employment programs have not managed to go to the kind of scale that something like the Social Relief of Distress Grant has gone to. And there's a lot of evidence that shows that interventions like that and public employment programs provide a stimulus effect in local economies, that people have money in their pockets. And with money in their pockets to spend, they're spending in local economies. We know from all the discussion on why our informal sector is relatively small, and we can debate the dimensions of that, but certainly in terms of global comparisons, it is relatively small. And one of the things that we see again and again in the literature is that local markets are very thin because people are poor. And for as long as local markets are thin, the scope for self-employment, for entrepreneurial activity at the local level, dependent on local markets, is limited also. And we've seen increases, that the things like social grants and public employment programs actually support the development of the local economy, self-employment and entrepreneurship at the local level also.
Okay, so I'm sorry, Kate. I have let you explain yourself to an extent. I accept all of that, but is it necessarily going to get the best value for the amount of money we're investing in the economy? To put it another way, yes, I agree that it puts money in pockets, but it's really a kind of redistributive effort. Now, I've got no problem with that, and I would encourage it, in fact. But could there be a better way where we can get better value? So, could someone, instead of working on a kind of make-work project that's not infrastructure or road, which would bring value, maybe be paid a little bit to do adult education courses that would then get them into something else, if you see what I mean?
But that's exactly what we are doing. I mean, the range and scale of public employment programs is very wide. And the critical challenge is to ensure that they're not make-work programs, because make-work programs can be pretty horrible. If you look at our program that is employing young people as teachers' assistants in schools, right now there are 200,000 people in post in over 20,000 schools who are doing work that really makes a difference. We have evidence that shows that it's moving the dial on things like learners learning the alphabet. So it's creating real social value. They have a one-to-one mentorship relationship with a teacher often, which is as high as you'll ever get in a workplace. And they're getting real work experience that matters for them, but also for the labor market. So, the kinds of skills that they're learning, the work experience that they're getting, is actually building their potential to be productive participants when they are able to get jobs. So these things work in synergy. They're just not binary issues. The key thing is to get the balance right so that we have an integrated suite of initiatives that complement each other and support people on different pathways into economic inclusion, because one size just doesn't fit all.
So sure, and I accept the argument that if you if you give people work experience, they're much more likely to find a job. That's true, but I don't think that supply is the problem. Isn't the problem demand? There is not enough demand for labour, and so you can give everybody in the country work experience if you want. But that's not. There just aren't enough jobs for everybody with work experience, and isn't that where we need to focus? Would go the argument.
Absolutely. We have a crisis of missing jobs. And so often the focus is on the supply side, trying to fix unemployed people by giving them another skills certificate or a better CV, when actually the problem is a demand side problem. But as a society, when we look at that problem, what we see is that labor has no value in our market at the moment. There's no demand for labor. And yet labor has enormous social value that we need to unlock as a society to do things exactly like the example you gave: adult education, literacy, food security programs, you name it, early childhood development programs. So we need instruments that can unlock the social value of labor until we've built labor demand to the scale of social need. And that's exactly what public employment programs do. They are an instrument that unlocks the social value of labor.
Dr. Kate Phillip, thank you very much indeed. It's a very important conversation at the presidential employment stimulus. Your thoughts on that? I mean, I get that work experience, and you see it, by the way, because you can see what rich people in society, in our society, do is they will tap someone in their network, give my child an internship. That internship turns into work experience, turns into a job. Whereas if you don't have those networks, you can't do that. But in the end, it is really about the demand for people. I know so many people of my generation, a bit older than me really, growing up, who were taken straight from school by companies to go and learn to be a computer programmer. In those days, they never actually saw the computer until they started working. The reason was there was such a need for people. The situation now seems very different, and that is a very unfortunate situation. Your thoughts, 19 minutes after 7.
Take the ultimate spin with 10Bet and me, Andy Ngube, to win a luxury BMW X3. Join 10bet.co.za, play selected games. Every 10 rands you play earns you points. Hit the top of the leaderboard and the prize could be yours. T's and C's apply. 10Bet is a licensed betting operator and supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 shall be permitted to bet. Betting can be addictive. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710. License number 921096661.
As leaders in renewable energy finance, Nedbank has a track record spanning over 100 years. From pioneering large-scale solar and wind farms to financing complex energy infrastructure in emerging markets, Nedbank offers clients deep sector expertise, combined with the ability to navigate the unique challenges of Africa's just energy transition. See money differently. Nedbank. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
Flight Centre's Big Red Sale is back, 21 October to 14 November. Save up to 50% on tours, 35% on cruises, and massive deals on Thailand, Mauritius, and the Maldives. Even local flights from 1,900 Rand return. Now that's a win. Plus, 2 kids stay and eat free on selected breaks. The world's waiting. The deals are calling. So, get to your nearest Flight Centre store today. T's and C's apply. Flight Centre. Your center for travel.
The Money Show. Africa Business Focus.
Africa Business Focus is brought to you by Herbert Smith Freehills Kramer, a global legal powerhouse. Dr. Rutendo Ndengwi, the founding director of Tribe Africa Advisory, in the studio. How's it, Rutendo?
Very well, Stephen. How are you, man?
Yeah, no, all right, thanks.
Good.
In Djibouti, a small country, we don't talk about it often, partly because it's, I suppose, Francophone Africa, but the International Investment Bank, TLG, there's a big deal there.
TLG being a UK capital investment company, it's a partnership. You're right, Stephen. Djibouti is very small, population of 1 million people, and GDP of 4 billion. But one of the unique things about Djibouti is that it is the base for Camp Lemonnier. I'm trying to pronounce that properly, which is the biggest, probably most strategic US military base on Africa. So that aligns with the kind of investment we're going to. The reason it's sort of a highlight story, Stephen, is that the TLG Capital has invested $10 billion in the telecom space there. So it's kind of interesting. Very small country, small GDP, small population size. But the telecom space there, because of the regional strategic location it has, they're investing. They want to cover about 23 zones, and they want to grow into Guinea, Benin, and Togo. So it's and obviously they contain the military bases not only for the USA but China, France, Japan, Italy, Spain.
They have a
Germany.
base for China and the United
and
States.
The United. It's a very unique. So a very unique thing, but ultimately a $10 billion investment in the telecom space in that region will make a huge impact.
The EU carbon border tax, and this is something that we need to talk about for us, but Africa as a whole needs to talk about it too.
Yeah, and they've talked about it. I mean, the representative of the EU who spoke at the recent African Union and explained the whole tax and its implications wasn't welcomed with a warm heart. And the reason is the carbon, it's called the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. And a research done by the London School of Economics a few years ago, Stephen, just highlighted that the impact of this tax, and the reason this tax was introduced in the EU, Stephen, was to just level the playing fields for importers getting commodities from Africa, which from a macroeconomic perspective, it makes sense. But the impact of that tax, which ranges from about 0.91% to 1%, is plus or minus 25 billion US dollars. But the downside from an African perspective, Stephen, and this is why there's a bit of a uproar on the issue, is that if you're importing, let's say, aluminium, which is one of the ones that is the highest impact, from a country like Mozambique, which uses hydroelectric power, which is clean energy, into Europe, the tax impact is less than if you're importing aluminium from South Africa, which relies on coal. So one man's meat is another man's poison. So, and I think that's the dilemma. Now, from a global opportunity perspective, then you'd think, okay, people start focusing on America. But the problem with America, there's a new tax regime with regards to imports. So then it suddenly starts pushing in another direction, which is east. So, and that's the dilemma with all the tariffs and clean energy and all these tax regimes globally. It's like squeezing a balloon, Stephen. It will eventually end up somewhere, but who's going to benefit? That's the question.
And Chevron, the big oil company, they're looking at strategic West Africa.
Yeah, Chevron has been always a big player on the African continent, but they finalized a deal to explore 2 offshore blocks in Guinea-Bissau, Stephen. And the blocks are in the area that include Senegal, Gambia, Bissau, and Conakry. Their focus is going to be on oil, but there's opportunity for gas. It's a partnership that they've made, Stephen, with Guinea-Bissau. It's a 90% to Chevron, 10% to Guinea-Bissau, so it's straight down the middle, pun intended. But ultimately, again, another great investment into the African space. Ideally, what we want to see, Stephen, is obviously this rolling down in terms of Guinea-Bissau as a country. Obviously, it's small. GDP per capita per person is not that high. So hopefully this translates to economic development.
And the African Development Bank Group, they've approved quite a big amount to help the Uganda-Rwanda roads project.
Yeah, Stephen, so it's a 217 euro $1 million deal, and it's probably in total the investment for that road itself is $400 million US. The actual length of the road, Stephen, is 27,
longer than Rwanda.
It's 27 kilometers, which is not long. But I must give the name of the road. It's called the Busega Mpigi and Kagitumba Kayonza Rusuma Road. So it's a bit of a tongue twister. But why is this so significant between Kampala and Kigali? Obviously, any road infrastructure, I mean, we take it for granted, but just by building this road, Stephen, the country, the travel time is reduced from 2 hours to 45 minutes. So which, I mean, from a long-term perspective, creates productivity. They've measured the social impact, economic impact. There'll be 1 million residents that will benefit from social services. And there's a focus in terms of just in the ecosystem of that road, women and youth being empowered and getting opportunities. So sometimes these things we take for granted, but ultimately, if they're done right, there's a positive socioeconomic perspective that comes out of it.
I've got an eat-whole gantry I'm happy to sell them. I mean, sitting there doing nothing.
I'll come to your house and support that ecosystem with the braai anytime, Stephen. Anytime. Stephen.
And then Barack Obama and Eliud Kipchoge, they had a big meetup, and obviously this would have excited Kenya.
So Eliud Kipchoge, I mean, he's run his sort of ultimate final race. He completed the New York City Marathon. It was his 7-star dream. And as a post-race event, the big highlight for him was obviously meeting one of his heroes, which was Barack Obama, who gifted him with an Nike Alpha 3 shoes. I don't run, Stephen, but I don't know if you know what a Nike Alpha 3 shoes. But why it was so...
I mean, if I did have those, then obviously things would be... I mean, that's what's been holding me back all this time.
Yeah, no, I know the feeling, Stephen. I share mutual respect. But why this was so important, for a number of reasons. One, Stephen, it's... when he won became the 5-time champion at the Berlin Marathon, those are the shoes he won. He was wearing, so he got that signed. And the other thing, I mean, we know that he did the sub 2-hour marathon record. That was one of his highlights of his career. It wasn't an official record, but it was the Enos Challenge. He's won a number of Olympic records. So for him, obviously, this is a dream come true. He's climaxed in his career. He's achieved significant amount, and he's been successful. And although he ended up number 17 in this New York Marathon, and I think he landed on 2 hours and 14 minutes. Ultimately, it's the climax of his career, and obviously Barack Obama, both of them being Kenyan blood, he's made an impact. And so it's an exciting news and a good end, an honorable end to a successful career for Eliud Kipchoge.
Dr. Rotundo Ndingwi, thanks very much indeed. Founding Director at Tribe Africa Advisory and author of the book Rumble in the Jungle Reloaded. Celebrating a decade in South Africa, global law firm Herbert Smith Freehills Kramer is committed to staying and growing on the African continent. The firm's reach is global, with 2,700 lawyers across 26 offices, bringing together local and international knowledge and insights to offer comprehensive legal services that meet your needs. Trust Herbert Smith Freehills Kramer for exceptional results in the transactions and disputes that matter most to your business. Visit hsfkramer.com for more info.
The Money Show
with Stephen Grootes, live on 92.7 and 106 FM. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app
and DSTV channel 856.
Various reports today based on an update from ShopRite yesterday about 60/60 drivers, and the one I saw in Fin24, I think it was, suggesting that the Checkers 60/60 drivers actually, their churn, in other words, how long they stay in the job, is very high. So they are moving out very, very quickly. And I was thinking, and I was driving along Joburg today, it was wet this morning, and I was driving along, and in front of me was someone driving one of these motorbikes, and it was wet, and you know those moments where you can just see how the bike is slithering along on the wet road. And, I mean, the driver is going as slowly as he can. He did what I thought was the right thing. It was frustrating to me, but it was the correct thing, which was he was right in the middle of the lane so that he couldn't be pushed one way or another and had perfect control of the motorbike because of the weather. And I was just thinking what kind of life it must be. And I've often thought that somewhere there is a book or a mini-series or something in the life of a delivery driver. What you see, what you actually get tipped, how it works. Are there particular areas in Joburg or Cape Town or, I don't know, Plettenberg Bay where you get the highest tips? Which areas give you the lowest tips? There are so many questions that I think we could look at. So just, I don't know if you've got any views on that. Just gone 7:30. 13th checks are next if Warren Ingram has his way. First time for the latest Eyewitness News. Marky, good evening. The President and the Joburg cleanup.
Well, Stephen, the ACDP is expecting Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to lower the inflation target to 3%, down from its current range of between 3 and 6%. But the party's Steve Swart says it's concerned about the negative impact this will have on consumers and economic growth prospects as interest rates may be kept higher for longer. Swart is also predicting lower than forecast economic growth figure of 1.1%, down from his expectation of 1.4%, which may increase the budget deficit.
Fiscal consolidation is necessary as debt service costs are crowding out expenditure on health, education and fighting crime. On a positive note, the ACDP expects a tax windfall due to the massive increases in gold and platinum group metals prices.
He says a windfall from a commodity boom should be used for investment in infrastructure and reducing national debt rather than for short-term consumption spending.
This, together with improved tax collection, will hopefully cover the revenue shortfall announced earlier this year.
Clinical trials for the country's first locally developed vaccine in more than 5 decades is set to get underway soon. Health Minister Aaron Motsoaledi led the official launch of BioVac's oral cholera vaccine at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Academic Hospital in Soweto today. The move marks the first time in over 50 years that a vaccine will be entirely manufactured in South Africa. The development is being hailed as a major step toward advancing Africa's vaccine self-reliance and strengthening the country's capacity to respond to infectious diseases through local innovation and production. Spokesperson Foster Mahali.
This initiative will launch phase 1 of the vaccine assessment in order to determine whether the vaccine can indeed prevent cholera infection. The clinical trials coordinated by South African Medical Research Council also highlight South Africa's ability to conduct such trials for multiple types of products.
Women for Change is calling on South African men to take a stand against gender-based violence. It says men must be included in conversations about GBV and hold other men accountable. The NGO is championing a women's shutdown ahead of the G20 summit next Friday to demonstrate the economic and social impact of their absence. Operations and Activism Coordinator for the organization, Marlies Jokiat, says men and women need to work together to address the scourge.
There's a misconception that men are not allowed to get involved. We need allies. Men need to be allies with us. Although the femicide cases are mainly perpetrated by men, it's the safe men, the ones who have voices, who can stand behind us and hold us up, that need to share this message, speak to their friends, speak to their neighbors, call in the men of the community that will listen to them.
And in the UK courts, a Chinese woman who masterminded a multi-billion-dollar Bitcoin scam and evaded authorities for years has been sentenced to 11 years and 8 months in jail today. Nicknamed the Goddess of Wealth, 47-year-old Shi Minshan was accused of orchestrating a Ponzi scheme that defrauded around 128,000 people in China between 2014 and 2017. It raised billions of dollars, much of which was converted to Bitcoin. After she came to the UK and during a multi-year investigation where she evaded capture, British police seized 61,000 Bitcoin worth more than $6.6 billion, believed to be a record in cryptocurrency-related crime. She was arrested in northern English city of York in 2024. A look at your weather. A partly cloudy Wednesday in store for Gauteng with afternoon showers and thunder showers expected. Temperatures will drop to overnight lows between 13 and 15 degrees and peak at highs between 25 and 27. A fine day for Cape Town, otherwise partly cloudy from the evening along with moderate southeasterly winds at a low of 17 and a high of 28 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News, the ACDP is expecting Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana to lower the inflation target to 3%, down from its current range of between 3 and 6%.
That's the sound she needs to hear to pretend to be sleeping. The sound that warns her to start hiding things that could hurt her. The one that alerts her to stay out of his way. And that's the sound that tells her not to ask how his team played. Win or lose, there's no excuse for gender-based violence. Take the Champions for Change course at noexcusesa.com.
At Auto & General, we understand your business is built on more than just vehicles. It's your stock, tools and equipment, and the premises where you work. Auto & General Business Insurance is designed for businesses like yours, protecting your assets against fire, theft, storms, and other unexpected events. To protect your livelihood, visit autogen.co.za and get an obligation-free business insurance quote. Auto & General, never not there. Auto & General is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
When it comes to protecting your workforce, trust the workwear brand that has been protecting workers for over 150 years, Sweetall. Sweetall has overalls and uniform solutions for every industry, so your team is safe, comfortable, and ready to tackle any challenge. Visit our new Boksburg showroom, shop A1 Atlas Road, Westwood, Boksburg, or go to sweetall.com today. Sweetall, we never let you down. Superior protective workwear since 1871.
The Money Show.
Personal Finance with Warren Ingram.
The Personal Finance feature is brought to you by Sanlam Corporate. They take employee benefits personally because when you care, everyone benefits. Sanlam Corporate. Well, I don't know if this happens anymore. I'm told that maybe it does. But I understand that some people in some places get what used to be called a 13th check. It may not happen at this time of year. It may happen at this time of year. For some people, you might get it in your birthday month. That I understand is quite common. I think some government departments do that. You might get a bonus at some point. Sometimes things happen, and for various reasons to do with the market, how the company does, you end up getting a bonus. Tonight on Personal Finance with Warren Ingram, we're talking about what you should do with it. Warren Ingram, of course, is a certified financial planner at Galileo Capital. I have to say, Warren, when I told some people that I know we were talking about this tonight, almost the universal response is, what's a 13th check?
I can't believe it. It's it feels to me like a lot of people still get them. So we move in different circles. You're obviously in the billionaire circle, and I'm in the low paid circle.
Very good, very good. Okay, so if you know it's coming, And it's very tempting, obviously, to spend it or spend part of it. I presume that there's some common things that happen that you can talk about. And I presume there are a couple of common mistakes that people make, sometimes very quickly after they get the money.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like someone winning the lottery, where something lucky has happened and they treat this bonus that they've earned through hard work and good performance as a very lucky windfall, something that they didn't plan on. And often we see that money getting spent very quickly and not necessarily in the most productive way. And if you're in that position where you are going to get a 13th check or an annual bonus, you can't look at it and say, well, this is just, because it's a lump sum, I can blow it on a holiday or something. And maybe the parallel here is if it's the same as, if it's equal to your normal monthly salary, there's no way that you would take that monthly salary and just go and spend it all, on one holiday, because, what would you do with, for food, et cetera, at the end of the month. And so maybe to think about this lump sum and say, actually, I need to treat this as a lump sum, but divided by 12 and then what is that amount and what should I do with that extra amount, rather than just as one big lump sum that, easy come and easy go. And we're no better off than I was after the payment. So I think that it's because it's a big lump sum and it's irregular, we psychologically frame it very differently. And so I would say, number one, you should treat this as another month's salary if that's the size of the bonus, and then decide what can you do with it in the most constructive way. And I know people are going to say I'm a Grinch and that I'm saying that you can't spend the money and have some fun with it. I'm saying you can't spend all of the money. Just be careful and just be balanced in your approach.
Your questions for Warren Ingram tonight. 072 702 1702 for WhatsApp voice notes. 011 883 0702 and 021 446 0567. But how to manage a 13th check? You might have other questions as well. Okay, I suppose when you get a windfall, you should do what the finance minister should do tomorrow. He's got a little bit more money than he expected, and there are a couple of fires he could put out with it.
Yeah, and for those of us that are in the position where you're renting a house, if you're struggling a little bit to make ends meet and maybe that rent is not being paid on time, this is the opportunity to get that up to date and maybe set aside some money for next month's rent just to get you ahead of the game. If you're a homeowner and you maybe not so diligent on your rates bills or your levies, then again use this as an opportunity to settle those. And then for parents, January's just, I know we're still all getting ready for December and the year-end holidays, but January's just around the corner just after that, which means it's school fees again. And so, what we do know about school fees is it's all good and well that you've got the money to pay the fees, but what about the books and the uniforms and all the other stuff that comes along with it? So just, getting ahead of that kind of an expense and prepaying and pre-preparing for all of that, so that when January comes around, you're not trying to deal with that. So I think that those are two good ones. And then maybe, look at your debts, and if you've got a debt that costs you more than 20% a year, that's, for me, is a financial fire, and that's something that you could put out with this money. So typically, if you don't know what your debts cost you, I'm talking about things like credit cards, overdrafts, personal loans, microloans, all money to the loan shark. I found out last week that some people pay loan sharks up to 60% interest in a month.
Oh, wow! And
that is just financial catastrophe. So if you've got extra money and you've got a loan like that, then you know what to do with it. Please go and settle that as fast as possible.
So, I mean, obviously, if you owe money, the best thing to do is to take the windfall and use it as a windfall to bring down debt, which over the course of your next year will give you a much greater rate of return on your bonus.
Exactly right. And you mentioned the finance minister. So if, I'm convinced he listens to the show every night. And when you're sitting with far too much debt and the interest is eating up your monthly income every single month, then the way to get yourself some breathing room is to pay off some of the capital that you owe so that the interest will be less next month. And that's the way that you sort of break this debt cycle and turn it into a positive cycle. And so that's the thing that, we can the breathing room we can give ourselves when we get a bit of extra money and we're struggling with debt. And just to understand, the stock market's done brilliantly for investors, both in South Africa and overseas. And we're seeing returns of 20 or 25 and maybe 30%, which is absolutely phenomenal, really exciting. But just think about that. Your credit card is probably costing you 25% guaranteed every single year, and it's compounding against you year after year after year. So you need to know that settling that gives you a huge step forward when you then can start the following month from a position of at least zero and not having to kind of dig yourself out of a hole that's just growing against you.
Good to hear your questions for Warren Ingram on 072 702 1702. Warren, we're about 10 minutes into this conversation and I haven't yet heard the phrase emergency fund. But presumably that is also a good place to put some money.
Yeah, that's once you've kind of put out the fires, or maybe you're one of those people that's, doesn't have a debt issue. The only thing you do is you owe some money on your home loan, or you've got a car payment that's under control. Then, the real kind of, to me, the thing that separates people who get onto that financial freedom path from those that struggle is the people that have an emergency fund tend to get life sorted a little bit more easily than those that don't have an emergency fund. And so, if your 13th check isn't big enough to get you an emergency fund that's equal to 3 months worth of your expenses. So if you spend 10,000 a month, then your ideal emergency fund is at least 30,000. And if your 13th check isn't that big, then at least start putting money aside. And whether it's $100 or 3,000 or 5,000, it doesn't matter. It's allowing you to get ahead so that when the emergency happens, and of course what will happen is that emergency arrives when you can least tolerate it financially, and so that might be the 1st of February, just after you're trying to get through January. And if you've got some money set aside for your emergency fund and your car breaks down, at least you've got money to draw on from your emergency fund, and you're not going into deeper debt on your credit cards or overdrafts. So to me, emergency fund is really the difference between kind of just trying to get through the slog and then starting to future-proof yourself and really getting yourself on the right path to financial freedom.
Okay, so if that's sorted out, I mean, there are other places you can go. There's a tax deadline in February. You could do something with a retirement annuity, perhaps.
Yeah. So we don't get many breaks, tax breaks from our friends at SARS. They've got bills to pay themselves. But one of the things they do give us is we can if we make a contribution to our retirement funds. Let's say you do your normal retirement fund contribution from your salary, but then you've got some extra money and you want to do a top up. You can do up to 27% of your salary as a contribution to retirement funds, and SARS will actually give you money back. And so for me, it's kind of a no-brainer. You're getting a free ride from SARS on a portion of money that you're adding to your own savings for yourself for your retirement. So I like to take advantage of that tax break from SARS, and certainly that would be, knowing that we've got a deadline to do that before the end of February every year. We don't have much time left, so if you get a windfall now, between now and then you know what to do is get going on that retirement fund contribution.
And then obviously, there's some things you can do around bond payments and things that would make a huge difference. In other words, I suppose what you're suggesting is that you've got to think quite cleverly about this bonus.
Yeah, you want to spread that. You want to spread that money into a few different things, and what the other one that I really like is our tax-free savings accounts. That we get the one lucky break from SARS is retirement fund contributions. The other one is we can contribute money to a tax-free savings account, and all of the growth that grows on that money is tax-free for us. You don't pay dividends tax, you don't pay tax on interest, you don't pay capital gains tax, and so if you haven't got a a tax-free savings account, or if you haven't maximized your contributions, which are 36,000 Rand a year, then a windfall, is a great way to kind of get that going and to make sure you're topped up for this year. And so to me, the retirement funds and the tax-frees, would be one of the very positive steps I would take once my emergency fund is locked and loaded.
And January and February, I always see December as kind of the most expensive month of the year. But actually, you get back from the holiday, you get back from being at home for a few weeks, and suddenly you find that January and February are unbelievably expensive. A lot happens.
Yeah, I don't have children, but whenever I talk to my colleagues, friends, and clients who have children, they would tell me that December is expensive because of the holidays and entertaining the kids. But these beloved children seem to do this thing called grow every year, and every year they get a bit bigger, and every year the uniforms need to be replaced, and school shoes, etc., etc. And then the schools give you a list of things that you need to buy in preparation. And so absolutely, January and February are expensive. And if your children are out of school and they go to university, that starts in Feb, and that's also very expensive. So for parents, I think maybe December, January, and February are just hectic months to kind of get through. For other people, you might find that you've got a rental agreement, and that runs from 1 January to the end of December, which means 1 January next year your rent is going up. And so we find that all of these kinds of costs tend to catch us at the start of the year. And if you can set aside a bit of extra money now to handle those cost increases, it just makes that that rising cost a little bit more palatable, a little bit easier to deal with, so that you don't then spend March to kind of November next year trying to catch up and get ahead again.
You are going to ungrinch yourself over the break, I hope, Warren. But I do have a question for you from Sarah saying, I keep seeing these super successful entrepreneurs and CEOs giving financial advice on social media, things like, I just invest in yourself, or I took risks and it paid off. But their advice feels completely disconnected from my reality. I have a regular job. I try to pay off debt and save a bit each month. Why does financial advice from really successful people often feel so useless for the rest of us? Am I missing something? That's such a great question, Sarah. We'll have answers. We'll have Warren's response in just a moment. It's 10 minutes now to 8.
At Chamberlain's, there's something for everyone. From building supplies for the home renovators to garden essentials for the homemakers. From power tools for the DIY doers to painting supplies for the patio Picassos. We even have coffee for the slightly sleepy and snacks for the young ones. And for the ones who can never quite find what they're looking for, we have you covered too. With our promise to find and source whatever you need. Chamberlain's, famous for hardware since 1903.
For the first time on African soil, business leaders from across the globe will gather for the B20 Summit in Sandton from 18th to 20th November. On the agenda is inclusive growth and prosperity through global cooperation. Tomorrow, the Clement Manyatela Show will be in conversation with Nedbank to discuss all the insights, expectations, and predictions ahead of the summit. So tune in to 702 in conversation with Nedbank, proud sponsors of the B20 Summit. Nedbank is a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by Absa CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards.
The Money Show.
Personal finance with Warren Ingram.
9 minutes to 8. Sarah's question, Warren. It's such a good question because I see them too. I see these super successful entrepreneurs and CEOs giving financial advice, things like just invest in yourself or I took risks, and it feels so completely disconnected from my reality. Why does financial advice from really successful people feel so useless for the rest of us? I mean, I'm not that interested in Jeff Bezos' advice, I have to say, Warren.
It's also almost on a, as if they're on a different planet from us. And so I get it. I think it's a little bit about human nature because, maybe to use running as an analogy, if I had to try and get, really quick at running 100 meters and let's just say really quick for me, I'm not going to go to Usain Bolt, who would find running 100 meters really easy. He could probably run 100 meters backwards as fast as I can run 5 meters. And so it would be very hard for Usain Bolt to teach me properly in a way that I understand, because he has no concept of how hard it is for me to run quickly compared to him. And so I think, when people are in a different stratosphere and in both situation and ability, then the advice that they're going to give is just going to be unrelated to our own situation, our own reality. And that's not a critique of the billionaires or the super successful people. It's just that's the situation they're in. I will say, though, that Sarah's talking about social media. The other point here is social media is full of pretenders, people who go and take a photo of themselves in front of some really expensive car or some fancy house, and if you do a bit of digging, you realize it's not their car and it's not their house. So we've got to be very careful of the influences. But what I would say is, you're not, if you're Sarah and you're in this situation, you're not missing something. It's probably better to find a role model a little closer to home, someone who maybe has just kind of taken themselves, a level up from their previous financial position. So someone who might just have, moved themselves onwards and upwards from where you are, but not way ahead, just slightly ahead. And talking to people who may be a little bit older, a little bit more experienced, but from a similar starting point as you, what you learn from them is the really good steps that they've taken, the really fundamental steps that they've followed to move their lives in the direction you want to go. So the advice from them will tend to be much more realistic. What I would always say is you can't expect that people are going to give you absolutely brilliant financial advice and kind of steps that you can follow. Follow these 7 steps and everything will be fine, because they're going to share their experience, and it's your responsibility to listen to their experience and filter out what you think can work and what won't work for you. Equally, that some of the advice that they'll give you will be completely wrong, not because they're silly, but just that sometimes it was just luck that moved them forward, and you can't always rely on luck as your strategy.
No, it doesn't work like that. Talking of role models of people close to us, we actually have a voice note on the whole issue of how the 13th check worked for them over the years.
Good evening, Stephen. This is Selma from Roodepoort. When my child was still at school, I used to get my 13th check end of November, and that was usually a day or 2 or 3 before the schools closed. So I immediately went, and in those days you still had bank checks, which I then quickly went and got, handed to him overnight and said, tomorrow morning in first break, you go and stand in the queue and you pay for next year's schooling in total. So I knew after that, regardless what happened to me, his schooling for another year had been paid for. Thanks for a lovely show. Bye.
Thank you, Selma. Yeah, I mean, I know people who do that. It's the first thing they do, because then if something happens to their job or something, they know that that's paid for, Warren.
What a deal. And it means that, you've got a bit of extra cash flow through the rest of the year per month, because you've catered for the school fees. I know the schools used to give you quite a big discount as well if you paid the school fees as a lump sum up front. And if that lump sum's not so, or the discount is not so good anymore, then maybe set aside that money in a separate money market account that you then use to fund the school fees every month. Or alternatively, don't worry about the discount, just pay it and it's done. So I love that. Thanks for the voice note. It's a brilliant share.
It's a very good way of doing it. All right. In my household, there's an expression, I'm going to spend it on ice cream, because when the kids were very young, someone would say, I'm going to give them some money, and we would say, they'll spend it on ice cream, which is what they were supposed to do. They were very young. And when we say we're going to spend it on ice cream, we mean we're going out to dinner or we're going on holiday or something like that. Warren, are we allowed a little bit of ice cream with our 13th check?
Absolutely. I think, I'm the first one to kind of set my holiday budget at the start of every year. And I think it's the thing that motivates me to do the hard stuff. So I think if you take, somewhere around 10 to 20% of your bonuses and you use that just for the proverbial ice cream, that should be guilt-free as long as you've taken the balance and you've done the things that we've discussed now and built in, a bit of kind of moving yourself financially forward. Then we should reward ourselves. That bonus is not just a lucky lottery win. It's actually a reward for very hard work that you've put in over time. And so you should reward yourself and recharge your batteries with the things that give you joy, because that's what will make you, kind of motivated for the next year. And so always we should reward ourselves, but we should just do it in balance.
And we should remember why we do it sometimes too. There was I won't name what industry it was in, but there was an organization that used to have an advert saying, remind yourself why you work so hard. There's something to that. You do need to have a little bit of fun.
We do, and it should be guilt-free. If you've set aside and you've done the responsible things, what do people say now? The adulting things. Then by all means go and use that money and be frivolous if that's what gives you the reward, because that is what will fill the soul.
Warren Ingram, thank you very much. Really enjoyed that. Warren Ingram, co-faunder of Galileo Capital and a certified financial planner. Decision makers like yourself help the South African workforce plan beyond payday. The Sanlam Umbrella Fund gives employees a clear path from payslip to pension with free retirement benefits, consulting and other value-added benefits. You get supported every step. They get dignity in retirement. That's care in action. And when you care, everyone benefits. Partner with Sanlam Corporate by visiting sanlamcorporate.co.za. Build South Africa's age of confidence together.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB, named Best Cash Management Services in Africa at the 2025 EMEA Finance Treasury Services Awards.
Well, let's have a quick look at what's happening in the US, and markets still concerned, it seems, about AI valuations. The Dow Jones now up 0.84%, the Nasdaq down 0.57%, and the S&P 500 down 0.03% on the day so far. Don't forget, tomorrow, the medium-term budget policy statement. Will we get an official decision finally about the inflation target? Looks like we might. And, of course, what is the finance minister going to do with the little bit of extra money that he's got to play with? There's a little bit of a wind at the back of Enoch Godongwana. I don't know if you can even feel it because it's so slight, but one or two things do seem to have improved. Looking forward to that. He, of course, will be speaking from 2 o'clock tomorrow. Good evening. We'll see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good evening. I'm Maki Malapo. Stats SA says the unemployment rate in the Eastern Cape remains alarmingly high after the province's joblessness ticked up in the third quarter. The Eastern Cape is the only province where unemployment rose in the 3 months through September, putting it far above the national average. The Statistics Agency released the latest unemployment data today, which showed an overall decrease of 31.9% in the 3 months through September, coming down from 33.2%. While this brings the number of unemployed people to 17.1 million, 8 million other people eligible to work still remain jobless. Stats SA says the official unemployment rate decreased in 7 provinces between the second and third quarters of the year. The largest decrease was recorded in Limpopo. Statistician General at Stats SA, Risenga Maluleke, explains the factors that influence unemployment in some areas.
It is because the rural provinces are far away from urban centers where people would be ready to take up employment. That is why when we look at provinces like Gauteng, the gap between the red color and the gray color is narrower. So is the Western Cape. Whereas when we look at provinces like your Northwest, Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, we can see that the gap is relatively wider.
In the same breath, Deputy President Paul Mashatile says the country's high unemployment rate remains concerning and a top priority. He says the marginal drop in the unemployment rate brings him no comfort. Answering questions in the National Assembly this afternoon, Mashatile agreed with BOSA leader Musi Maimane that education and skills should be placed at the top of government's reform agenda.
We are very concerned about high levels of unemployment, even when sometimes they say unemployment has declined a bit by 1%. We don't become excited because it's still high. And therefore, we need to do everything to ensure that these plans that we are reviewing them for to ensure that they are implemented faster.
The Johannesburg High Court is set to hear the trial of alleged underworld figure Vusmusi Ket Matlala from January. Matlala appeared in the Alexandra Magistrates Court today alongside 4 co-accused, including his wife, Tsakani. The 49-year-old is accused of 11 attempted murder counts, including a botched hit on his socialite ex-girlfriend, Debogo Tobejane, in October 2023. Mungezi Koko reports.
The charges against Vusmusi Ket Matlala have been centralized and his matter is ready for trial in the Johannesburg High Court. Among the charges against him is the attempted hit on Sienki Mokobung, known as DJ Vetis. NPA spokesperson High Court. Among the charges against him is the attempted hit on Sienki Mokobung, known as DJ Vetis. NPA spokesperson Pindim Jonondwane.
The charges are 11 counts of attempted murder, 3 of conspiracy to commit murder, 3 of possession of prohibited firearms. Then we also have counts of contravention of the Organized Crime Act, the Prevention of Organized Crime Act.
Among the attempted murder counts, Matlala and his co-accused are charged for a botched hit on taxi